The flight was supposed to be routine, calm skies, quiet passengers, and nothing unusual. But when turbulence hit mid-air, chaos erupted. Alarms blared, oxygen masks dropped, and the captain's trembling voice echoed through the cabin. "Is there any fighter pilot on board?" Everyone froze, except for a young black boy, asleep by the window, headphones still in place. Passengers whispered, flight attendants panicked, and the plane shuddered again. No one could have imagined that the terrified plea from the cockpit would awaken someone whose past could save them all, someone no one had even noticed until now. Miles had always been quiet, observing the world with a patience beyond his years. Growing up in a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce and prejudice ran deep, he had learned early to stay out of trouble and blend into the background. His family was proud but cautious, aware that even small missteps could be misinterpreted. On this particular day, he was traveling alone for the first time, heading to a summer program that promised exposure to aviation, his dream. The airport buzzed with travelers, families, and business people, a sea of hurried faces and rolling luggage. Miles's calm demeanor contrasted with the chaos around him, his eyes tracing planes taking off, imagining himself in the cockpit. Though he had a boarding pass and a seat assignment, he felt invisible among the crowd. Flight attendants barely glanced his way, and other passengers gave him the kind of wary glances that were meant to pass as neutral curiosity. But Miles wasn't offended. He had grown accustomed to being underestimated. Inside him was a quiet confidence, a knowledge that he was more capable than anyone guessed. As the plane prepared for takeoff, the hum of engines and the distant chatter of travelers created a rhythmic backdrop. Miles settled into his window seat, headphones on, and let the vibrations of the plane lull him into sleep. Outside, clouds shifted, and sunlight danced across the wings, a serene contrast to the tension he often felt on the ground. Little did anyone know the very skills and courage he had honed in secret. Years of simulator training, disciplined study, and an unyielding focus on flying were about to collide with an unexpected life-or-death moment miles above the earth. The plane had barely leveled off when the first sign of trouble appeared. A sudden jolt rocked the cabin, sending drinks tumbling and passengers clutching their seats. Murmurs of concern swelled into tense chatter. The flight attendants moved quickly, trying to reassure everyone, but the unease in the air was palpable. Then came the crackling voice from the cockpit, tight and panicked. "We've lost altitude. I need a trained pilot. Anyone trained in fighter jets?" Gasps filled the cabin. Heads turned, eyes scanning for anyone who might answer. A man a few rows ahead, a businessman, shook his head nervously. A young woman murmured to her friend that surely someone had to know how to help. The tension grew with each passing second. The plane dipped again, a shuddering reminder of gravity's unforgiving pull, and fear gripped everyone like a vice. Miles stirred in his seat. The announcement reached him through the thin barrier of his headphones, cutting through the rhythmic hum of the engines. At first, he hesitated. Years of being overlooked had taught him to stay invisible, to let the world underestimate him. But something inside him, a blend of instinct, confidence, and responsibility, flared. He remembered every simulator session, every hour spent studying flight patterns, every moment he had prepared for an opportunity like this. Slowly, he raised his hand. Heads swiveled, some in disbelief, some in suspicion. Whispers rippled. "A kid? Is he serious?" The captain's voice sounded again, more desperate. "Anyone with fighter experience now." Miles spoke calmly, yet with authority. He explained his experience, his training, and his readiness. There was a moment of stunned silence, followed by hesitation. Some passengers glanced at him skeptically, their disbelief laced with racial bias, unconsciously doubting that a young black boy could possess the skill to intervene. But the captain, running out of options and time, gave him the nod. The cabin went still, every eye fixed on him as he moved to the cockpit. The sound of metal, switches, and instruments filled the space, a language only those trained could understand. Sweat prickled on his brow, but his hands were steady. Outside, clouds churned ominously, a visual echo of the chaos inside. Turbulence battered the wings, and Miles guided the controls with a precision that belied his age. Every maneuver a testament to years of dedication and unseen preparation. The cockpit was a whirlwind of buttons, switches, and the low hum of strained engines, but Miles remained focused. Each decision he made was critical. One wrong move could send the plane hurtling toward disaster. Sweat dripped from his brow, but his mind was razor-sharp, trained to anticipate every reaction, every shift in the aircraft's trajectory. Outside, storm clouds roiled violently, the plane buffeted by turbulent winds that seemed intent on testing every ounce of his skill. Passengers could hear the tension in the captain's voice, the subtle tremor that had not been there before. Miles's calm, precise instructions replaced the fear with action. He guided the plane through the turbulence, correcting each pitch and roll with the precision of someone decades older than his age. Yet despite his expertise, the whispers around him carried the weight of disbelief. Some passengers still questioned whether he could handle this, an undercurrent of racial prejudice lingering in the air. As the plane approached a critical descent, the gravity of the situation became undeniable. The landing gear had to deploy perfectly, or the plane would risk catastrophic damage. Miles's hands moved confidently, guided by years of practice, yet he felt the invisible pressure of the doubters weighing on him. Each flick of a switch, every calculated adjustment, was a defiance of the assumptions that had been made about him long before he even boarded the flight. Finally, the plane broke through the thickest layer of storm clouds, the runway appearing like a beacon in the distance. The engines roared, the wheels touched down, and the aircraft skidded safely along the tarmac, slowing steadily until it came to a complete stop. A collective exhale swept through the cabin, relief, awe, and a dawning recognition of what had just occurred. Passengers looked at Miles with a mixture of shock and admiration, realizing that the boy they had ignored, dismissed and underestimated, had just saved them all. In that moment, the invisible barriers of bias, the assumptions rooted in skin color and age were laid bare, powerless against skill, courage, and preparation. Miles had not just flown a plane, he had shattered expectations, challenged prejudice, and forced every eye in the cabin to reckon with the truth. Heroism has no age, no color, no limits. The aftermath of that flight lingered long after the plane came to a halt. Passengers stepped onto the tarmac, some shaking, some speechless, but all carrying a new understanding of courage and capability. Miles, once invisible in the crowded cabin, was now the focus of every eye. Reporters and airport officials quickly descended, cameras flashing and questions flying. But amid the chaos, one truth stood out. A young black boy had just saved dozens of lives. In the days that followed, the story spread like wildfire. Social media erupted with awe and disbelief, videos and eyewitness accounts capturing Miles's calm authority and extraordinary skill. Yet, beneath the celebration was a deeper, more sobering realization. Many reflected on how easily people had doubted him because of his age, because of his skin color, because of assumptions they carried without thinking. For Miles, the attention was overwhelming, but he remained grounded. He returned home to his family, who embraced him with pride and relief. Yet he carried a quiet resolve. He understood that heroism is not only about extraordinary moments in the sky, but also about the everyday courage to pursue your dreams, to hone your skills, and to rise above the limitations others impose on you. His story became a symbol, a reminder that potential often goes unnoticed, that brilliance can be hidden in plain sight, and that courage does not always look the way society expects. Airports, airlines, and flight schools began highlighting his achievement, emphasizing the importance of training, preparedness, and recognizing talent irrespective of age or race. But the most lasting impact was personal. Each passenger who had doubted him carried the lesson forward, a reminder to question their assumptions, to look beyond appearances, and to measure people by their actions rather than their identity. As the plane sat idle on the runway, Miles gazed out at the horizon, calm and contemplative. He knew the skies held endless possibilities, but he also knew that the world below required just as much courage. And in that quiet moment, a rhetorical truth echoed for all who had witnessed it. Sometimes the heroes we overlook are the ones we need the most.